he did everything you told him to do, AJ. He broke it
That's
down into
great.
little 17-minute sections, and he was rereading them and re-listening to them over and over and over again. And he said, this is so good. He says, I'm going to connect you with my friends on Facebook, because he has a group that he's on Facebook. So I did some of these conference calls with them and answered some of their questions and talked to them about it. And we just had a lot of fun. And he said, I'm going to introduce you to AJ. And there we are.
That's fantastic. That's great. Oh, I'm so glad he found you, because that is a perfect level for a lot of our members, especially who are it could be called intermediate level,
Right.
And that middle school level is a great place for them to start reading novels, and it's so much more interesting to read a cool story with interesting characters than doing some textbook horrible thing.
No, it's not a way to learn. And you find, I know I learned German through a textbook, okay? And I took 6 years of it in school, through junior high and high school, and even my first year of college. And I honestly only remember the things that were phrases that I memorized. And so I couldn't speak German if you sent me to Germany right now. And I don't think that's the way to learn. I think the way that you're purporting to learn is much, much better. I think the retention is better. I think because you're enthusiastic about it and you're inspired by the idea of it, that makes you feel more confident about doing it yourself. And so I think that it really is a good way to learn. Excellent way to learn.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show. On Twitter, your Twitter is what? It's at Teresa Snyder 19?
19, that's me.
At Teresa Snyder. And I'll retweet I'll tweet out your address and send me your links to your website. What's your website?
My website is actually theresasnyderauthor.com. It's real easy, just my name with author.
Author.com. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. It was great to finally talk to you. I'm glad
it is excellent. I'm so glad we finally connected. You take care and have a great Sunday. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye-bye. All right, fantastic. Great, so now it's time for question time. And that is when I answer your Twitter questions. So my Twitter is twitter.com/AJHoge, AJHOGE. You could ask me questions about reading and writing, and I can answer those, or about anything. Let's go to Twitter now and see what questions we have. Let's take a look. Okay, so here's a good comment from Ataova. It says, the first time I read Jane Eyre 3 times, and I was very proud when I understood the whole meaning of the story. Fantastic. Now see, Jane Eyre is a classic book, obviously. It's definitely higher than middle school level, so if you can read Jane Eyre, that's amazing. It's fantastic. The point is, when you read a storybook, what happens? A good one that you like. You get lost in the story, right? You sort of, the book pulls you in, and you get really excited, and you start imagining the action. You imagine what's happening in the story. You see the characters in your mind. You see the action. So what are you doing in your brain? You're actually connecting these images, these thoughts, to the English words. It's happening automatically. You don't need to think about it carefully. It automatically happens. You're also, when you're reading a good book that you like, you're also feeling some emotions, about the characters, about the story. Those emotions are being connected to the English. All of this helps you remember it and to understand it better, and eventually to use it more. That's why reading storybooks that you like, that are understandable, is so much more powerful. Because when you read a textbook and you just try to memorize some list of words, or you're reading some story in a textbook that's really boring, and I think they're usually really boring, and then you have to do some exercise and answer a bunch of questions, which is not fun. What happens is, you're not really connected to that, and you're not imagining it deeply and feeling strong emotions, so the learning is less with the textbook. I mean, that's really what's happening psychologically. So that's why it is so much more powerful with reading to read storybooks. And it's a great idea to start at around a middle school level, about the level of the Farloft books. It's the name of the books that Teresa has written. So get yourself some books and just start reading for fun, and get into the story, and just forget about the English. Focus on the story and the images in your mind, and the English will start happening automatically. In fact, you really will learn best when you completely forget that you're reading English. You're so excited about the story and interested in the story that you're not even thinking about the language at all. When that happens, you start learning unconsciously and automatically, and it's quite powerful. So great, fantastic. So I'm answering your questions on Twitter, twitter.com/AJHoge, AJHOGE is my Twitter address. Type them in there. So Julia, our superstar Julia says, I enjoyed the conversation and I want to improve my reading, and I also look forward to your book, AJ. Yay, thanks. My book will be coming sometime this year. I'm rewriting. We mentioned in the conversation, Teresa and I, that this process of writing, when you're writing something serious, something important that needs to be, good, maybe something for work or school or something like that. When you do something important, you actually rewrite it. You write it many times. This is another reason why tests, like English tests, they're not real world. They're nothing like the real world. Because if you do a TOEFL test or something like that on the writing section, you only have a short time, right? They tell you to write an essay about something, a few paragraphs. They give you some serious topic that maybe you don't even care about, and then you have to write about it. But you have no time. You have to write it. You only can write it one time because you're trying to finish the whole test, and then you hand it to them, and then they correct your mistakes and say, oh, you made a lot of mistakes. Well, of course, even professional writers make mistakes the first time they write something. That's not how it works in the real world. In the real world, if something's important, you write it, and it has mistakes, and it's not very good. That's normal. Even for great writers, that's normal. Then what do the great writers do? Then they maybe put it to the side. They come back the next day or the next week, and they look and they say, oh, this is not very good, and they find their own mistakes, and then they write it again and make it better. And then after doing that a few times, they give it to a friend or a colleague, a coworker, something like that, another writer maybe, and the friend reads it and gives them ideas. Oh, this isn't so good, maybe change this, this is confusing. And so then the writer writes it again. And then finally, if it's very important, they give it to an editor, a professional editor. And the editor, once again, goes through, finds the mistakes and corrects them, and gives them suggestions to make it better. So it's this long process to make some writing that's very good for something important. And that's why a test is really not a real test, because it's not like the real world. In the real world, you have a lot of time and you write things many times. Okay, let's keep going. Jakub Jaworski 10 asks, good question here, can I be a great English speaker without reading? Yes, you can. You can certainly learn to speak very fluently, very powerfully without reading. So why would you want to read? Well, reading especially helps vocabulary. It will build the amount of words. In fact, reading is probably the best way to learn vocabulary. The other great thing about reading is just that it's a great way to get a lot of great information. So yes, you can be a great listener and speaker, and that's fantastic. But one of the great advantages of reading is that you can get online, you can find all these amazing books in English, and especially with English, there are amazing books on many, many topics, and you can learn so much by reading. Don't think of reading as some job. I must learn to improve my reading. Just enjoy it. When you want to learn something, find a book and read it in English. When you are interested in certain kinds of topics, read about those topics in English. Don't make it into some serious job. It's not. No. But the short answer to that question is that certainly you can learn to be a powerful speaker with simple vocabulary, and you don't have to do a lot of reading. I think just reading has its own benefits, though. It has many benefits. Okay, let's go back here. I'm gonna retweet some of Teresa's comments here about reading resources where you can find books. Okay, so Charlie, another one of our superstars over in France, he says, you can say that again, AJ, forget about learning. We'll use the quotes here. Enjoy reading a story you like. Instead, just do it. Get her done. He's talking about a comedian with the famous phrase, get her done. So again, what Charlie's saying is that, and I've found this with my own learning with Spanish, that when I make it something serious, when I'm really serious about it, I gotta study Spanish. Oh, I must study Spanish. Oh, I must achieve a high level of Spanish. Then I just get stressed and bored. and then I want to quit. But when I just say, oh, I'm just going to have fun, I don't care. I don't care if I become good. I don't care anything. I'm just going to chat with my friend in Spain, and I'm going to read some fun books that I like, that are kind of interesting stories. When I do that, I actually do it much more because I enjoy it. I love it. And then because of that, I'm actually learning a little bit more and improving. It's the same in English. We've been poisoned by school in many ways, meaning that school gives you this attitude, this idea that English is a serious subject that you must study. Oh, and it's very serious, and you cannot make mistakes. And so it's this heavy feeling that's not very fun. It feels terrible. But if you just relax and you just think, I'm going to read some fun stories that I like in English, there's nothing heavy about that. It's not serious. It's not difficult. It's just fun and easy. You get to read a story about a dragon. That sounds fun to me. If you like dragons and fantasy, then read Teresa's books. And if that's not your thing, if you prefer romance, well, there are lots of romance books in English. And some of them are easy and some of them are more difficult. Find one that you like and just read it. Enjoy the story. Just enjoy it. Or you can read about nonfiction. If you like motorcycles, read about motorcycles in English. Just to relax. And it's the same with your listening, by the way. Listen to interesting, fun things. That's why our Effortless English topics focus on topics that are interesting and useful for your life. Help you achieve success and leadership and happiness and more fun in your life. Okay, I'm going to answer one more Twitter question, and then the Effortless English News coming up next, very briefly, and then we will be done for the day. Let's see if we have any more Twitter questions very quickly. Okay, this is a great question, our final question from Adnan Kazimanan. It's a Twitter name, I don't know how to pronounce it. He says, sir, should we read only real and nonfiction books or also fiction? Because they're not real stories. Either one, they're both fine. It just depends on what do you like. Some people prefer fiction. Fiction's great. Fiction stories are fantastic. So if you like fiction, read fiction. If you prefer more kind of like real stories, not fantasy, then you could read things like Hemingway at a higher level, or easier versions of kind of real life stories. You could read mysteries. You can read fantasy books like the Farloft books. You could read science fiction. It's up to you. But some people don't like fiction so much, and they would like to read instead nonfiction. They might want to read more about business if they're interested in business. Or maybe you're really interested in pop culture and actors and actresses. So you read gossip magazines. That's okay. So there's not a right answer. The right answer is what's interesting to you. What do you love reading? What makes you happy? What makes you excited to read? That's what you should read. So it's very individual. Everyone has to choose reading that is best for them. So I can't tell you exactly, you must always read fiction or nonfiction, because it's not true. The truth is you read what you love. And maybe you need to just try a lot of things and find what you like. If you don't know, then try lots of things, and you'll start to find certain writers and certain kinds of books that you enjoy. Focus on those. All right, thank you for your Twitter questions. Now, really quickly, the Effortless English News, what's happening in the world of effortless English, and also with our friends over at Learn Real English and Business English Conversations. Well, some exciting news I mentioned last week. I'll give you an update now. We are going to do a culture show, something like this show, on American culture, focusing on the real American culture. The title so far is Real English, Real America. I'll be doing that show with my best friend, Kristen Dodds, who is from Learn Real English, who was my guest last week, in fact. So we're still planning to do that. We're going to meet again this week to discuss the topics and to schedule the very first show. So that show will focus, this show here obviously focuses more on English learning and on success in general, career development. Those topics are what I talk about in the Effortless English show. In the Real America, Real Culture show, we'll focus more on culture, especially North American culture. And that's our update for Effortless English News. As always, to get our Effortless English courses and to learn with Effortless English, go to effortlessenglishclub.com. You can also join our free email course at effortlessenglishclub.com. So join that course, and I will see you again next week. Have a great day. Good talking to you. Bye for now.